Hello and welcome back to Math and Tea, the show where we talk math and drink tea. I'm your host, Professor Joseph Van High. Sorry it's been so long since the last recording. March has been kind of a crazy month. I really wanted to get this recording done tonight, but just so you know, there's some rain and thunder outside, so there might be some background noise on this one. Also, a big thank you to my Aunt Karen for getting me some tea for my birthday. I'm not going to need any more for probably another year. But enough of that, let's get back to the math. So let's say you've decided to go to grad school. Well, good for you. But now, of course, the first thing you have to deal with is the application, and it's an early source of stress in the whole grad school process. So let's talk about it some more. The most important thing to remember when you start the whole application process is that the people who decide on whether or not to accept your application or not are people, not robots. And as people, they're all different. What one person is looking for is not the same as what another person is looking for. And therefore, there's no real perfect application you can write. So don't try. Instead of trying to make that non-existent perfect application, just focus on making a strong application. That's all you need to do. The second thing to keep in mind is that one of the big things we look for in a graduate application are signs that you will succeed in a graduate program. Now, that can be hard to judge, especially for PhDs, because they involve a lot of research, and undergraduate programs don't tend to do a lot of things that would prep you for, well, research. But it's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind regardless. The third thing is, well, if you look at a lot of top-tier undergraduate programs, they talk about wanting more than just academics. They want to know that you're going to be good at civic leadership, or that you're good at community engagement, or that you do lots of extracurricular activities. Well, when it comes to graduate programs, we don't care about any of that. We just want to know that you're good at math. So those things don't count for nearly as much anymore. Okay, now let's talk about the elements of your application. Let's start with the GRE, the Graduate Record Examination, which is basically the graduate version of the SATs. Basically, every program is going to want to know what your score was on the GRE. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, you don't actually need a really great score to get into a good program. It's less about getting a good score and more about not getting a bad score, where what counts as a bad score can differ from university to university. Heck, as I was doing some research for this episode, I even saw one place say that if you got a 50th percentile or above, that was good enough. But that's probably on the far extreme side of things. Simply put, take the GRE, focus on getting a good score, but don't stress over getting a great score. It's probably one of the least important parts of your application. Now let's go from what is arguably the least important part of your application to the most important part of your application. That's right, your transcript. If you want to apply to a math grad program, you should have taken lots and lots and lots of math courses. As many as you can and as advanced as you can. Honors is good, graduate is even better. And you should do well in all of them. A's are what we want to see. B's are okay, provided there aren't too many of them. C's start to get a little problematic. Now, don't panic. If you get a C, that's not the end of the world. But there should be some kind of mitigating factor. Maybe you retook the course and you got a better grade on it later. Excellent. Maybe it was a course you took really early on, and after that you started doing a lot better. That's fine, we'll notice. Maybe there was a death in the family. Okay, find a way to let us know about that sort of thing. And remember, we care about math. That D you got in history, who cares? Now, onto the part of the application you probably have the least amount of control over. Your letters of recommendation, aka your letters of rec. You should ask potential letter writers way in advance of the deadline. We're talking weeks, if not months in advance. Yes, it really can take that long to write a good letter. But you should also check up on us to make certain we've actually written the dang thing because, well, a couple of us can be a little scatterbrained. Just, be nice about it. The people you ask to write your letters should be people who know you well. If you've only seen them in class, if you've never been to office hours, probably not a good choice. The thing that works best in letters of recommendation are specific details about you personally, and if the teacher doesn't know you well enough to write them down, well, it's not going to be a good letter. But if they do know you well, then they can be a great person to ask. Remember, the things we're looking for are signs that you will succeed in a graduate program, and who better to know that whether or not you'll succeed than people who've already been through a graduate program. You should also ask your letter writer if you can share the rest of your application with them. They might know you well, but they probably don't know you perfectly. This will give them more information so they can emphasize your good qualities and smooth over some of the bad. The remaining details of your application will vary from place to place, but the one thing that most everyone also asks for is some form of an essay. OSU calls it their statement of purpose. Now, I don't advocate rewriting the whole essay from scratch every time you want to submit an application. Have a general framework with maybe a paragraph or so that you rewrite for each university. And yes, you should tailor your essay to the specific university. The best things to tailor it for are math related. For example, when I was an undergrad, I already knew I wanted to do number theory. So at every grad school I applied to, I made certain to emphasize how much I was looking forward to doing number theory at their department. Listing off the courses that sounded really great. Talking about a professor or two whose research program sounded particularly interesting. The essay is also the place where you can fill in the gaps and tell us about things that you really couldn't anywhere else in your application. For example, what got you started being interested in mathematics? Tell us about that. What do you hope to do with your degree? Tell us about that. Did you take any advanced reading courses? Tell us about that. Did you do any research as an undergraduate? Tell us about that for sure. Did you take the Putnam exam? Tell us about that. Are there any particular subjects or problems that interest you? Tell us about that too. Just keep in mind those three things from the start of the episode. There's no perfect essay, we're looking for signs you're going to succeed, and stick to the math. Two additional things to remember for your essay. First, you should keep it concise. We have to read a whole bunch of these essays, and the worst thing you can do is be boring. And second of all, keep it well edited. Spell check is just the beginning on this thing. Be sure to run your essay past several people. In my personal recommendation, I would go with at least one mathematician, at least one advisor, and at least one person with a writing background to check it for any flaws. If you're feeling bamboozled and looking for a place to start, some people will put up their essays online, or they'll put up outlines of what sort of things you should have in there. It's a good tool, but whatever you do, don't plagiarize. Well, that's it for all the major elements of your application. If all of this seems rather daunting, it should. Grad school is kind of a big deal, but again, don't panic. The key thing is starting early. The more time you have, the less stress you'll be under. There's a whole lot more to talk about for grad school, but I think that's a good place to stop for now. If you have more questions, you can leave them in the comments below, or ask me on Twitter at @mathandT. But that's all for now, because I'm out of tea again. Kinda.